everyone, this is Grant here. I'm from Handmade Cajons here in the northern suburbs of Brisbane in Australia. I've been making cajons for quite a few years now, and that's certainly become a much more popular choice as a percussion instrument, certainly in the last few years. One of the things I often get asked is about the difference between a plywood cajon versus a solid timber cajon, and haven't been able to find a great deal about it out there on the internet. So I thought I'd do a bit of a video today just to show some of the differences that I've found between the plywood cajons that I make and the solid timber ones as well. And I'll also do a demonstration so you can hear some of the differences. So firstly, let's consider the materials used. We think about plywood. It has a number of benefits. So number one, it's quite a cheap material. So when you think about the different qualities of plywood, they do come at a different cost. But on the whole, it's still a fairly cheap alternative as a material to use for building cajons. And it's quite easy to build with as well. It's easy to cut the plywood into the size that you need and be able to assemble it quite quickly and easily. No need to joint the boards together, whereas with solid timber it can often take a bit longer because you need to potentially be able to joint boards together so that you have a big enough piece of timber to use to make the cajon. So that is a benefit of plywood. Plywood is quite strong as well, it's durable. The way plywood is manufactured is that it has layers of veneer that are overlaid with the grains running in opposite directions, and that brings an inherent strength to the product as well. I found in my cajons that a 12mm ply is quite good. That's about a 1/2 inch. Plywood's a light material as well, so it makes the end product quite light and durable, easy to carry around and portable. And look, in the end, plywood does give a good sound. It's a real timber, and that has a good resonance and a good tone that is created from a plywood cajon. So it does come with a good sound, absolutely. Plenty of manufacturers using plywood in making cajons, even top quality cajons. So now let's think about solid timber. There are some things that set it apart in terms of making cajons as well. Firstly is appearance. Solid timber just looks great. Comes with a variety of grains and colours and textures that are often an important thing to consider when you're thinking about the type of cajon you'd like. You can mix timbers together so you can have some really interesting finishes and looks. Solid timber is also quite a strong material to use for making cajons. I tend to use a board that's about 16mm or about 5/8 of an inch thick. When you're working with the timber, because the grain is running in a certain direction, there can be a risk of it splitting depending on the type of timber. So having a slightly thicker board minimises the risk of that happening. But you can certainly know that the end result is going to be strong and solid, which you can also feel in the weight of that. So the solid timber is usually a little bit denser and heavier than the plywood, so you can certainly feel that there's a little bit of a difference in the weight in the solid timber cajons. Depending on the type of timber you use, that can vary a little bit. Most importantly, I think, is the consistency of solid timber. Compared to plywood, which has the multiple layers of veneer on top of each other, plus the glue in between, solid timber is the same material all the way through. So that has an impact on the resonance that you get within the cajon. Certainly solid timber can have imperfections like knots or small cracks or holes depending on the timber you're using, but those imperfections don't tend to impact on the sound as much as the variability that you can get with plywood and the consistency in that. There are some timbers that have particular acoustic qualities that are really sought after, particularly for instrument making. So for example, I've made some cajons out of a timber called Tasmanian blackwood, which is often used in guitar making as well. And that gives a really beautiful tone and a richness to the sound that some other timbers don't give. So depending on the timber used, it can really enhance the tone of the cajon. So in the end, it comes down to the sound. I've got two cajons here. This one here is made of plywood, and this one here is made from recycled hardwood and silky oak. The tapa on both of them is the same type of plywood, so they're essentially the same design and size, and so this way we can listen to both and see what the differences are. So I'll just play both of them for you. First the plywood. For the sake of this demonstration, I'll leave the snares on. Now we'll play the solid timber one and see if you can hear the difference. So let's compare them side by side. Do the bass tone first. So here's the plywood one. And the solid timber. You notice that the tone and the resonance in the solid timber is just a bit richer and clearer than in the plywood, although both of them have a good sound. This one's just that little bit crisper, particularly in the snare. If you listen to the snare on the plywood compared to the solid timber, the solid timber gives a crisper, clearer and slightly higher note, which I think is down to that resonance difference. On my cajons I have these little corners that I put on my cajons, which I call a rim shot corner, and you'll notice a difference with those as well. So I'll play the little rim shots on the plywood versus the solid timber. So even with those rim shot corners, that you get a real crisp, clean tone in the solid timber versus the plywood. So it's particularly those high notes, but definitely the bass as well gives you a good clear resonance when you're playing the solid timber cajon. So in the end, is a solid timber cajon worth the extra cost? Well, that depends. What's most important to you? Is it the cost? Is it the sound? Is it the look? All of those factors are going to contribute into your decision. Hopefully this video has helped to show the difference between a plywood and a solid timber cajon, to show that there is a difference. There's a difference in the sound, in the tone, the resonance, the appearance, and yes, in the cost. You need to weigh up for yourself what's most important to you in your decision about what cajon you'd like to get for yourself. The best way to decide is to try it out and see what you like. If you'd like to find out more about ARC Handmade Cajons, you can follow me on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. I'll put the links in the description below. You can click on the cajons now to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you like the video, give me a thumbs up. Thanks a lot for watching.